Okay, great.
Okay, I'll push the button on the live.
Yeah, let's do it.
That one and that one. Yeah, looks like our event's starting. This is Darrell as a Service with Regarding 365. You have the Message Center Show, episode 107 with Daniel Glenn, live at SharePoint Fest. Today we'll be covering a few announcements, such as the... Oh, I'm looking at dismissed announcements. That's really clever. The recommendations for historical forms. There's a few changes around dark mode in Outlook, and Microsoft Teams screen sharing with Skype for Business. Let's roll that intro. All right, hey Daniel, this is great. You're at SharePoint Fest right now.
I am, yes. SharePoint Fest here in Seattle, and having a great time. I did a workshop on Tuesday, and with fellow MVP. I did a session today about refreshing your intranet with modern features. Tomorrow, one including one will be with having a great time here at SharePoint Fest. And what's going?
We get a bit of a drop out there, Dan. I don't know how I'm coming through, but we'll rock on with that. That's us. I've been meeting up with the rest of the Regarding 365 crew. We had our first contributors meetup, and I've been playing around with green screens and interviewing a few people on there's some integration, some really interesting integration between the Message Center and Planner. So there'll be a video to share about that later on too. We can rock into this Message Center. I realised just now too that I need to share my screen for you to be able to see what we're actually talking about. Always helpful, isn't it? All right, you can see the messages now, can't you, buddy?
Yes.
Excellent. All right. So our first message, I actually got to try this out this week with another contact who's still using Skype for Business. This is a message which is allowing us to have shared screens between a Microsoft Teams person or organization using Microsoft Teams and an organization using Skype for Business. And where this has become useful, especially just a couple of days ago, I was in a chat with a colleague, and we needed to talk about a project plan. He was still using Skype, and I was able to share my screen with him from Teams.
Yep. And this is big because we are able to, we talk to organizations all the time that are in this mode of, we got to get off Skype Skype for Business because it's going away. But we're not going to move everyone to Teams. We got to get adoption activity, all that kind of stuff. So this is very helpful for being able to have interop between the two, right?
Yeah, that's exactly it. It is that transition phase. We know that Skype for Business Online is moving on, that you will eventually need to move to Teams. And it's these transitions that help you to plan ahead. We know we've had a lot of time, but some of our larger organizations do need additional help. And I kind of liken this to when an organization is changing email systems and they need to have the calendar sharing interop, the free busy between two environments. So
Right.
Anything like this is going to help us with that kind of transition.
Right, exactly. The more they can help us, the more adoption and the less pain that we can have. I'm all for it.
Yeah, definitely. Now, in terms of dates and what that you need to do to prepare, we always make this wisecrack joke about the advice that it's stamped on as you do not need to do anything to prepare, but you might need to consider changing your user training and notifying your help desk.
Yes. standard stamp of what we get for our messages, right?
That's right. So we always say that there is more to it than that. Now, what kind of advice do you think we should give, Dan, for organisations that are going to receive this feature?
Well, of course, we need to understand that this is a thing, right? That some people are using Teams in the organization, and because those people who are still on Skype won't necessarily know that other people are using Teams, right? So just an education effort of, okay, we're going through this process, and there's some that will be using different technology and whatnot. So some education there, but then also education and helping people understand how to do this, I think is key, right? So that it's smooth out the rough edges. Right?
Yep, definitely. Look, I also want to add that it isn't as simple as you click a button and it happens. So my experience of this week was I could initiate the sharing with the Skype person, but they couldn't initiate it with me. So it's not true interop. And when I did, it pushed a message into the chat to say, here's a link to click through and turn this into a meeting. So it didn't really stay in chat. We actually got shifted to a meeting, and then we could share screens.
Right, exactly, which is a little different, but I guess a little bit of different mentality, as it were, but I think at least we have that functionality, right?
Definitely. It is about smoothing it out as much as possible. I don't expect there to be any huge amount of development trying to make that even more smoother, because it's about moving people to Teams. But anyway, we can move on.
Okay.
We do have an announcement that dark mode and suggested calendar locations in Outlook for Windows. Interesting mix there. It is
an interesting mix.
Yeah, like we can have dark mode and not blind our eyes from having these white screens. Oh, and by the way, we'll also suggest some calendar locations when you're working.
Yeah, it's okay. So it is interesting, but having the dark mode, okay, that's fantastic. So I know a lot of people love dark mode in Windows and other applications. So being able to do this in Teams, fantastic. But then the event locations and calendar, I think it's nice to, and I think we may have another update about something like this where we are being suggested information. I think that's great for things like consistency, but also just ease of use to get it done quicker, right? To move on and not have to. And here for locations, it's I think a little more exact, right? So that people are saying the right thing of the locations for their calendar entries.
Yeah. It is about speeding up that process of booking that meeting, having some intelligence to about, hey, you have used these rooms before, or this is a good size room for the number of people that you've invited. We saw a message in the message center a couple of weeks back, if you remember, Dan, where it was showing a bit more of that information in the invite. When you go into Outlook on the web, what do we call this now, everyone? I'll ask in the audience there in SharePoint Fest, were we supposed to just call it Office, or was it Office Online, or Office on the web, or no?
All of the above, apparently.
All of the above, yeah, because in this message it's called Outlook for Windows, not just Outlook. But Outlook on the web, you would get more information about what the meeting room was like, what kind of resources might be in there. And so this is all part of that package. It's about trying to make it easier to book a meeting and have all the right resources available.
Right, exactly.
Rolling out to monthly channel customers by early September.
That is right.
Now, there is a bit more information there about what to do for change. So we always like this when it isn't just the standard stamp. Let's just bring this up and just see what comes of it. So they're entirely separate features, aren't they? One is about black themes for preferences.
Right. Correct.
Let's see what comes of this one. Loading. All right, so we've got our support page and dark mode in Outlook and how to switch to that. Features currently available only for Office Insiders. So that'll get updated as soon as available.
It's rolling out to monthly channel customers by early September.
Yep. So how to toggle on and off, that's pretty straightforward. Look, I'm okay with dark mode, but I think you've heard me complain about it before, that's okay if you don't have a lot of windows behind you.
Right.
Reflection.
Well, there's a lot of things about dark mode that I think it is not I don't think it's for everybody. I really don't. And because in some cases I like dark mode in applications, and other times it just doesn't do it for me. I can't, especially the way the application works, it just doesn't look great for me. So this is one of those that to each his own, or her own. Use it if you would like. If not, move on. Yep,
that's right. I'm sort of hanging out for the orange mode actually, because that would really be helpful. Anyway, that's dark mode / orange mode. Add your own filters, and then we've got location suggestions for Outlook for Windows, not just Outlook on desktop. And there's a blog post there in the tech community that's now displaying on the screen for those who are in the live audience that's the SharePoint Fest, which is good. This is what we see in terms of the flow of information, that there'll be something in the roadmap to say, here's a feature, it's coming, might have been announced at somewhere like Ignite. Then there'll be a blog post to say this is a bit more detail. And finally, when it actually turns up in the message center, it might reference that blog post with a few updates.
Right.
So scheduling assistance and just adding a bit more information there about room finding.
Correct.
Fancy stuff. All right.
Next
Back
up.
to...
Oh, my.
What have we got?
So the next is the Office 365 Admin Center, the submissions, and the improved quarantine file previewer. Do you use the quarantine area in Office 365 a lot, Darrell?
I actually depend on another feature which checks the attachments first. It's that safe links. And sometimes I'll click on that link and it'll go off to that redirected thing first and then give me the actual attachment. Now, I know that quarantine's a part of that process, but I don't consciously go there and use the service itself.
So do you get digests from the quarantine? Messages to quarantine?
Yeah, not in my role, but I know that it's available.
Yeah, okay. So your experience with this is drastically different than mine, Darrell. So I'm glad we're tag teaming on this, because I get I get the roll up, the quarantine summary, and I have to check it every time, because every time it catches email that it shouldn't. So I have to go and be able to preview what the message is, and then release it if I need to, and allow the sender. So in fact, probably I would say maybe 3 or 4 months ago, the quarantine started getting really aggressive for some reason. I don't know what happened, but it really changed the way we do it, our organization's ability. I've really had to educate people on the quarantine because of that issue. It really has. It really has changed, and so I have to go in there and release it. So being able to have a better preview model is fantastic.
Yeah, definitely.
Yep.
We still see genuine messages getting caught in various different places, don't we? Even messages that are coming from Exchange Online, and they're genuine invites.
Right.
There's nothing suspicious about it. So you do have to check these places to make sure you're still getting that information. I think you experienced something similar to that recently, right? With a change in a domain.
Yeah, and I've gotten stuff caught in quarantine from people who I've been emailing for a long time. So it's not like they all of a sudden, it's a new person or whatever. Some contacts were caught in quarantine. So, and they were legit in emails. So anyway, whatever we can do to improve that experience, I like the ability to, like I said, the preview of messages is better now, or will be better. But this whole idea of being able to submit suspicious URLs or emails, I think for just improving that process of, we're not just sending stuff to junk and then that's it, right? It's being able to be a little more intelligent and helping Microsoft be a little more intelligent about how things are done in the real business world, and helping that AI, I guess, to look at what's coming in and saying, okay, is this really something that shouldn't be caught in quarantine or not? And when we report suspicious stuff, they can review it for us, right?
Yeah, look, that brings to mind that there's more of a trend now for people to report things back into Microsoft directly from Office 365. Some of these things we're a bit, it's not great that you're contacting Microsoft directly and sidestepping the help desk. But in this case, if you see something suspicious, you see that it's like a spoof of a certain message that would be tricking people, it's good to report that as quick as possible.
Sure.
Okay. Moving a bit further up, we've got some good news there for Mac users. Now, we've had Files on Demand for Mac for some time, and now that's going to be turned on by default, it looks like.
Yes.
Yeah.
So this, for those that don't know, the Files on Demand is a feature to have those, really a pointer of your files for OneDrive enabled, so that you can see what's there, but it's not actually, the file's not actually there, and only will download the file when this is the on-demand part, only download the file when you want to use it. And this is big, I think, for, especially for devices that are having, we talk about bigger and bigger space, but I'm seeing a lot more devices actually saying, hey, more features, but we'll reduce the hard drive space so that you get more features for more bang for your buck, right? Mm-hmm. Well, if you're downloading all of your files from OneDrive and they all are on your machine, then that can take up a lot of space. So having this Files on Demand is fantastic, and having it on by default so that users can start using it and don't have to turn it on and manage it themselves to on the get-go I think is awesome, and bringing that to Mac is a fantastic thing.
Where we've seen it be super useful is helping people again in a transition from working on file servers and Windows Explorer into working into the cloud. And so that's where it's great. It's now extending that same adoption technique to the Mac experience. People who are used to dealing with files on their Mac and using Finder can continue to do that. They don't necessarily have to go to a web browser to work with files.
Right.
So good to see it on by default. If this is a strategy that doesn't really sit well with your org, then you do have options there to turn it off. So beginning to roll out mid-September as part of the, 19.123.0624. You go and find the number yourself. That build.
Moving right along.
Yeah, moving right along. We have...
So I want to stop just for a second, Darrell, because I actually have an item there that you don't. And it's an interesting item, and I think this is more of a targeted. It is item MC188422. 188, yes, 422. It's called Fix Issue with Canvas App Web Link. And so this is one of those messages, when I saw it, I was like, why are we seeing this message here? It's categorized as a prevent or fix issues. And basically the description is they've noticed that some organizations are, when they're using Canvas apps, it's passing parameters, and those parameters are not being consumed correctly. And so here's the fix. The fix is you go in and replace the question mark with an ampersand, and the URL will work correctly. And they're working on a permanent fix.
Oh man.
Message Center, I'm not sure why it's showing up here and why it's showing here and not in some. Shouldn't this be in the health section? I don't understand. But anyway, so you might see that if you're using Canvas apps. I'm thinking it's targeted since you don't have it.
Look, I admit, sorry folks, I was playing around with stuff earlier and I hit this dismiss button. I'm like, a message just disappeared. Where'd it go? And I thought, okay,
Nice.
It's going to be in dismissed, isn't it? Surely. I go in there and everything's in date order and I just couldn't find it. I thought, Daniel's got me covered, I'm sure. He'll cover it.
Yeah, there we go.
Sounds familiar.
So maybe it's not targeted, but it's one of those oddball messages. I'm not sure why it's there, but
Yeah.
it is.
Yeah, definitely. Our last message as we sort of finish off before we get into general observations and stuff happening in the community. Let's switch scenes there.
We didn't cover. Hold on.
Oh, OneDrive.
There's actually two. Yeah, we actually
yes,
two.
There are.
So
Updated feature for
OneDrive will become the default save location for the upcoming semi-annual release of Office. If you're on the monthly channel of Office updates, you already have this, but they'll be making this part of the semi-annual release, meaning 2 times. So if you're on that release, when the next time you update Office, OneDrive will be your default save location.
Now, have you had customers get used to this and had any comments? What's their feedback around this feature?
I think the feedback I've gotten was that it's good, and especially when we're in Outlook and we're saving files, we're getting suggested to save stuff in OneDrive. And I think you have to be mindful of this change so that when people are making changes or using the feature, I guess I should say, then it is a little bit different way of working, of maybe working out of OneDrive when you haven't before. And so that's just a different, thinking through of how you actually work. I know Microsoft wants you to be working out of OneDrive. And frankly, if you're saving files in Office to your local machine, you're just asking for trouble when your hard drive crashes. But, having that OneDrive be that default location, I think it's a great thing. But again, helping your users understand that change and adopt this it's not just something where I think you can gloss over it. Anyway, so that's my thoughts.
Yep.
What are yours? What are your experience with that?
Look, I mean, personally, I'm in the habit of going to where I need that document to be, creating it there, and then clicking save. Yeah. So I know that most people will fire up Word, fire up PowerPoint or Excel, start creating that document, be working on it for about an hour before they realize, oh, gee, I haven't saved this yet. So they'll click save and call it new document, and it's on their desktop because that's what it is. But this is a good feature where it is going to at least direct them to save it to somewhere where it's safe, synchronized, and you can collaborate on it. I do believe, like I said, I don't see this using this feature much, but I do believe you get the choice of choosing that drop-down box and choosing a SharePoint site that you are working out of too.
Yes. Yeah, you can save the SharePoint as well. Yep.
Yep. So it's going to present to you the common places that you are working, and at least you can believe you can drop it into the root of a team site and then shuffle it wherever you need it there. I think it's good. It's directing people to working out of the cloud. If their touch point is opening up their desktop app, remember, we just call it Office. We don't call it Office on desktop. And it will point you to the cloud.
Yep. All right, now last message.
Thank you, sir. Okay. When you're creating Microsoft Forms, sometimes you're doing them from scratch. But if you are, now you'll have this option to, or suggested questions from other forms that you've created.
Yeah, I mean, this is a big deal. I think if you use competitive products or competing products, maybe like SurveyMonkey or something, they've had this and the ability to suggest questions. And again, I mentioned it about Outlook of reuse or having type ahead or being able to get stuff done for you, make it quicker. I think this is good for, especially, you're creating forms. There's highly likely that you are creating forms with the same question or a question that's very similar to what has been asked before. So I think it's fantastic to be able to use this. The second thing, though, I think is big about this is, remember, this is just forms that you have created. It's not pulling in questions that from forms that other people have created. So
right.
That's one thing that just highlight, hey, make sure that you understand this. This is not some sort of security issue. You're not going to get a suggested of who thinks the CEO stinks. Someone created that. That's not going to become a suggested question for forms, unless I guess it was you that created that question. Anyway.
Yeah. So on screen there, we've got a preview of what that's going to look like. It's called Question Ideas, and that's consistent with the Ideas feature we see in PowerPoint and more of the AI happening across Office. It's giving you ideas about how you might use certain content, structure it, lay it out, theme it. So good to see some consistency there.
Right. Yep.
Remember, you don't need to do anything, but you may consider updating your user training. Yes.
So, yes, actually do that. Don't do anything. Do the actually updating your training. For this one, I actually haven't run into a lot of organizations that have training around forms other than how to access it and how to integrate it, right? Into like SharePoint or something. I don't have any customers where they saw the need of saying, I need training on forms outside, and not just training. Remember, adoption is not about just training, but being able to use the service, outside of what is available already that Microsoft has provided. It's one of those things that I think maybe it's because not everybody's using it yet, or it seems to be more of a niche thing where, not everybody's creating surveys or forms using it. But I think it will increase more and more. I don't see adoption really high of forms, but I see it increase. I do see growth in it, and I see the ability to use it where people are not using it currently, I guess. So I think it's good.
Yeah, it perhaps doesn't come to mind for most people about getting feedback in different quantifiable ways. And that's what a form is all about. It's capturing that, it's constructing your questions in the right way so that you can go back and say, here's what 30,000 people said.
And it doesn't have to be some huge thing that, 30 questions or something. It could be one question that you throw on a page in SharePoint that says, what do you think about this?
Yeah.
Period. Done.
Yeah. And might I say, too, not just a SharePoint page.
No. Yeah. Right.
Yeah. But have you used forms alongside a Microsoft Stream video?
I actually haven't. I've seen it used, but I haven't used it. But it's sweet, right?
Yeah.
To be able to say, what do you think about what you're watching?
So if you're running a live event or you've pre-recorded a video and you want some feedback or some kind of interaction you're collecting as a call to action, then use that form. It's a great way to capture it.
Yep, agreed.
All right. Well, that's in terms of the message center, it was kind of light. I expected that because we pushed out our usual time. We usually do this on a Monday in the US. Was it 2 p.m.?
1 Central.
1 Central. Yep. Okay.
Yep.
I expected to see more messages, but it got kind of quieter. But there were some things that have been arriving in the community, which we've got just a couple of minutes to talk, have
Sure.
we? Still,
That's right.
we've seen a feature come into Teams, which I've got really excited about, and that is when we are in a Teams meeting. Sometimes I want to play a video and watch along with the audience. I want to talk about it. I've got some audio to share. And now there's a tick box when I go to share something on my screen that says share system audio. And this is something that we've seen so many crazy workarounds in years gone by of people pulling their headsets and poking it as close to the microphone as possible or holding their mobile phone up to it.
Yes.
Yeah. So now we don't have to do that. We actually have crystal clear audio.
It's great. I think
Yeah.
that's awesome. That's a sweet functionality that, it's one of those things that it's not that big of a new feature, right? I mean, it's not like, hey, look, this new thing that, private channels or, but it's actually something that I think could really be used. And like you said, we've had to do workarounds to make it happen in the past. So, I mean, it's actually sweet functionality. Do you think you would have to do anything about that change, Darrell, in Teams? Do you need to update your user training guide?
Look, I would make people aware of it for starters. I
Yeah,
definitely would. Because there are
Yeah.
people that do want to share a video and watch along and talk about it.
Yeah.
Or audio within PowerPoint, for example, might be another thing. So it's about, first of all, creating awareness, and then what do we say about training? Tick that box if you want to use it. That's about it. Maybe update anything that you're currently published around training.
Right.
Now you said private something. Is that arriving now? Are we seeing it now in people's tenants, the private channels?
I have not seen it. We had an announcement about that it was coming. There wasn't a whole lot of information. We saw that announcement back earlier this month, right? We covered it in 2 shows ago about private channels, but I have not had it show up in my tenant yet.
Yeah, there's still discussion around it, some rumours and thoughts about what's actually been released and how it's been structured. I know that it's going to be super important to the SharePoint community as they think about information architecture and what does happen when a team gets a private channel.
Right.
All we can say really is keep watching this space, and as soon as you get it, certainly let us know, because we'd be interested to hear what your thoughts and reactions are, and how you're going to structure your workflows around that too.
Yep. I think it's going to be a big topic for people to be discussing, and presentations I'm sure will be there at your local conferences and your SharePoint Saturdays and your Office 365 Saturdays and events. It's going to be a topic of how are you using it, and I think that's part of the what we give back to the community is it's not just about what we think about it, but how are you using it so that maybe you're doing a better job at using it or thinking about it as, maybe you've thought about things that I haven't thought about, implications of using. So anyway, once you do get it in your tenant, in your production or in your test tenant, let us know what you're doing.
Yep. We all learn from those stories.
Yeah.
So, we'll just finish off there, I guess. And for those in the audience too, we really would love for you to follow us at Regarding 365. We do have our own YouTube channel and a group of people that are really enthusiastic about sharing their stories and helping people along that journey. So do find us there, youtube.com/Regarding 365, and you'll definitely find this show along with other things. And what else could we say there, Dan? Anything else to follow and keep up with?
Yes, we recorded a new episode of the Coffee Chat on 365 adoption actually this morning. Sarah Hazy and I did. So that will be coming to our YouTube channel in the next week or so. So be looking out for that. And I think that's think that's about it. All I have
There
there.
is one more thing.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, and it's an interview I recorded yesterday with a Brian Smith, who works in the planner engineering team support.
Okay.
He's had a solution out for a couple of years now, making some integration between the message center and planner. So I'm going to drop a link up into the video so you can go through and see that once it's published, maybe in a day or so. But it's amazing that it'll take messages from the message center, drop it into buckets and planner, and then you can turn them into tasks that are actually actionable for people
Right.
in the different roles to deal with that message. So that message that says you don't have to do anything, but you might want to train your users and update your information. Oh, and there might be something that your admins need to do, will all become subtasks on that message, or rather on that task.
On that task.
Yep.
Awesome.
All right. Well, all the best for you all there at SharePoint Fest. I know you've got a day or so more of some great content, and good connecting with there, Daniel. We managed to pull it off. Not
That's
bad.
right. I was sweating when I landed in this chair, but
yeah, I saw that.
it was all
First
good.
face I saw was all kind of like, oh, is this working? Yeah. We'll roll that outro, and we'll see you again next week. Bye for now.
Bye-bye.